Okay, choux paste. Cooking a choux paste, which is the base for eclairs, cream puffs, etc. I have started melting the fat already, so I have here water and shortening. We add salt to it. It's a very basic paste. Now what we have to do is we bring this to a boil, and of course then the fat will have completely dissolved. Once we get to this point, we add the flour, which we're going to cook on the stove, and what we're doing is we're making a roux. Once the roux is finished, we move this into the machine bowl. We let it cool down a bit, and then we are adding 10 eggs to this product while we blend it on the machine. To pipe, we're going to be using a number 7 or 8 star tip, and today I'm going to do 2 different shapes, the eclairs and the cream puffs. As soon as this comes to a boil, we add the flour. Just going to turn it down a little bit. The longer this evaporates, the more liquid we have to add after, the more eggs we're going to have to add. So this is one part where we may have different amounts in a recipe by group. So we put all the flour in at once. We use a wooden spoon, and we just stir it until all the moisture is absorbed. And the longer you cook this, the more steam we inject into this paste, the larger the pastries will turn out. So what I'm looking for is that the paste moves away from the sides, and the base of the pot will have a base build up, will have a white base, but the choux paste is almost impossible to burn. You can see it's starting to pull away from the sides, and we have a white base in the pot. It's got to be smooth, and of course all the flour has to be disappeared. Okay, this is the first step. Now what we do is we move it into the machine bowl, use a paddle, and then we start adding eggs to that. Okay, now we're taking this choux paste and we add it to the machine bowl. Going to use a paddle attachment. Close the safety gate. And what we're going to do, we're going to let it mix for a minute or so to cool it down, so when we add the eggs don't start to scramble. And you can see a lot of the steam is coming up. It'll just take a minute and we can start adding the eggs to this. We add the eggs in stages, and when we come to the last egg, we have to be careful, because once this choux paste becomes too liquidy and it doesn't hold the shape anymore, we can't fix it. We can't add flour because the flour has to be boiled. So we have to be very careful at the end. I'll show you what to look for when the choux paste is ready to be piped. Okay, now the choux paste has cooled down enough, and we start adding the eggs. So I have 10 eggs here, give or take 1, depending on how much moisture we lost during the cooking. Maximum second speed. And we wait until the first batch of the eggs is absorbed. As soon as the eggs are absorbed, we add the second batch to this. But after 5-6 eggs, everything is going to look scrambled. So don't worry about that. Just keep adding eggs. It will come back together to a paste. So add the next set. So what we're looking for is a smooth paste which moves just slightly when it's piped. If you lose the shape after it is piped, the paste is not going to work out. You're going to lose the shape during the baking. The product is going to be almost hollow when it's baked, and that's hollow space is used after to put the filling inside. You can see it's starting to pull back together. I got 4 eggs left, so I'm going to add about 2 and then check the consistency again. So once there's too much liquid in it, it can't be fixed. I'm going to use a rubber spatula to clear out the sides. Okay, so what I'm checking for now is the consistency of the paste. You can see it holds the shape, there's hardly any movement. Now the more liquid I can add, the smoother it gets, the easier it is to pipe. But once I add too much liquid, I have to start over again. So I'm going to add approximately half of the eggs what I have, and then do the last test. Got 1 egg left. It's easier to pipe while the choux paste is still warm, because once the choux paste gets cold it becomes tougher and it's more difficult to handle it with the piping bag. Okay, I'm going to use all the eggs because the cooking went pretty quick. So I'm going to use the last part of the egg and then clean it down once more, and it's ready for piping. This can be of course kept for the next day, it doesn't matter, nothing's going to happen to choux paste. You can keep it in the fridge for a day, you can pipe it the next day. It's only going to start to increase once we put it into the oven. So I'm going to take it off the machine so I can show you the consistency. Okay. So you can see the choux paste moves just a little bit. This is what I'm looking for. Nice and smooth with very little flow. Okay, now this is ready to be piped. Okay, now the last step of the choux paste before they go into the oven is the piping. So we take a medium-sized piping bag, fold it over, star tip is inside. Take some of the choux paste, fill it into the piping bag. Now the choux paste, the eclair does not spread sideways very much, but it will rise in height. So to make it easier to pipe, so the paper doesn't lift up, I put some weights on the paper. Piping bag is held in a 45 degree. For the eclairs, right on the tray, stop and pull it up. Next one, stop and pull it up. I slide right along the tray. This gives me more hold to get the sizes even. So these are the eclair shapes. Now the cream puff shapes, I'm going to do 2 different ways. The faster way, it's trickier to pipe is a rosette. There should be approximately the same amount of choux paste in the cream puffs as in the eclairs. A base and a very tight circle on top, so they open up nice and round. Now I'm just going to fill up a little bit more choux paste, and I'll show you the next part of the piping. So if you're not familiar with rosette piping, we can just do a simple shape by holding the piping bag straight onto the tray, 90-degree angle, and just keep pushing until we get about the same amount as we have with the rosettes. Just pull them straight up. We're going to fix this after. If you would bake them like this would turn into a tip and would be difficult to finish, plus the tips would burn. So what we do now is we take a towel, which I put some water on it, so it's a moist towel, and we take the towel and we just knock them down. So now they look similar to the first shape of the product. You can even do that with the eclairs to get a more even end. Is the trick I learned in my apprenticeship. Okay, now these are ready to go into the oven, and it's a hot oven, about 425 degrees Fahrenheit, approximately 15 minutes. This one here. Okay, now we have the finished choux paste. We just took them out of the oven. You can see they have puffed up quite a bit. And the object of the baking is to make sure that they have color on the side. If the choux paste is underbaked, it's usually before we have color here. Right now the choux paste is still hot. As soon as the choux paste cools down and we have no support here, they're going to collapse. Because right now they're full of air, and the air will shrink when it cools down. And if they are not baked, the product will collapse. Once the choux paste collapses, we have no more room for the filling. I'm just going to cut one to show you what they look inside. So you can see they're practically hollow inside. And this is where we're going to put the filling inside. If there's still some paste inside and you need more filling, room for the filling, you just take this out and we can fill them after. Okay, so this is the baked, finished baked choux paste.